Ladies and gentlemen, story number 1. I knew my wife was a fan of the good life, but I never thought she'd leave me for a rich young athlete. I trusted her and showed her love, but she didn't appreciate it, so she cheated on me with a younger guy just because he had more money. I never understood women. One minute they love you for who you are. It's not what you offer or put on the table. The next minute she changes and loves someone else. I don't know why. I love her and showed her love too much. I got comfortable at the fact that she was mine and she would remain mine forever. I mean, never ever give or take all the love that your heart offers and give it to someone who is not your blood. That's one thing I got to learn the hard way. It was not easy accepting it, but life goes on. It taught me that I should rather use I learned to love and appreciate that person with my mind, not my heart. I came to understand that once it breaks, it's not really easy to repair. I'm not sure if I handled everything the right way, but it was satisfying for me. If anyone has experienced a similar situation, I'd love to hear your take and how you handled it. I'll share my story so you can understand my perspective. I met my amazing wife, who was thoughtful, respectful, and sophisticated when I was in my second year of university. I was studying science at the time, so I was really into science and philosophy. I was always reading and experimenting. I loved learning about people's lives, especially people from the past. My wife was 32 and doing marketing studies at Boston College, which was not far from where I was living in a student accommodation. I didn't even know that we were living in the same building. One day, I ran into her by chance. I was late for my class, so I was running, and I accidentally bumped into her. I spilled her coffee mug and the books I was carrying. I got pretty angry because the books I was carrying had my assignments that were due that day. Instead of apologizing, I told her to look where she was going. Then I left her there, fuming. A week passed without me bumping into her. I was already feeling guilty for what I had done. I mean, I was the one on the wrong side of things, but I blamed her for my actions. I needed to see her just to apologize. At least, that's what I thought. So, as I was walking to the nearest fast food restaurant, I saw her walking with, when she saw me, her friend. She looked disgusted. I knew I was lucky. They were going to the same restaurant I was. I got a chance to go to their table and apologize for my behavior. I asked to speak to her. She ignored me and carried on talking to her friends. I just blurted out my apology to her. She gave me a hard time. Then I told her I wanted to make it up to her, or at least replace her shirt that was ruined by the coffee. She eventually told me that she was free on a Saturday, which was the only time I could apologize to her properly and replace her shirt. At least there was some progress. On that Saturday, I met up with her as I had promised, and we went to the mall. I apologized to her. We chatted about random things and how we didn't know each other while we were living in the same building. Our conversations were smooth and funny. I asked her to choose the restaurant she wanted to eat at, and to my surprise, she chose McDonald's, which wasn't what I would have picked. I'm a big fan of McDonald's, but I respected her choice. We started getting along on that day. We exchanged numbers, and that's how our friendship was formed. We would go out exploring San Francisco. I didn't know how much I was missing out on. I would go out, but I would either go to museums or science labs. I didn't know the beauty of San Francisco until the day she forced me to go out with her. I enjoyed every moment I spent with her. I learned that she was really smart and business-minded. She was very focused on her dream of having her own marketing agency. A few months passed, and our friendship was going well. Even her friends started complaining that she was no longer spending time with them, but she didn't care. She taught me a lot about life and that there's more to life than just books and science labs. Every time we spent together was always a great experience. During those months, we spent a lot of time indoors. We ended up having a picnic in my room as friends. I accidentally kissed her, but it wasn't really an accident because I'd been longing to kiss her since the day we went to the mall. As it happened, she kissed me back, and before we knew it, our clothes were on the floor. I didn't realize she'd be so forward. She was always bubbly and carefree, but I didn't think she'd be a freak and accept a kiss like that. We kept up the relationship for a couple of months, but we hadn't even called it a relationship. It was just sex. Then I asked her how we were defining our relationship, and she said she thought we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I hadn't gotten that memo, but I was glad she'd suggested we get into a relationship, instead of just being friends. Our relationship was going really well, much to her friends' disapproval. I was glad that she was not ashamed of me and our relationship. I fell in love with her each and every day. She understood me and my obsessions because she would sometimes go with me to historical sites. We connected very well. I remember when she used to call and ask if I had eaten. If I had not eaten, I would hear a knock at my door. There she was, with a big container of food she'd cooked. She knew how to take care of a man in every way. I loved her more for that, so we dated for a year until we took our relationship to the next level. That year, I got an internship as an assistant professor in philosophy. It was going to be great for me in my dream career as I wanted to be a political scientist. The money I was making was enough for me to get my own place, and I proposed to Bianca. I proposed to my wife 2 months after she moved in with me. At the time, she had also started her own social media marketing platform and was doing well in her job. I was really proud of her. She was also going to graduate that year, so things were going well for her. Everything was going well for us, too, if I may say so. As she was doing her social media marketing, she would sometimes go and meet up with either influencers or other people who needed her talent and skill in marketing. We were doing well and had everything we needed. She continued being the great fiancée who knew how to take care of a man. She always made sure to come back earlier from work so she could cook for her man. I really appreciated her in my life. She had already met my family and they welcomed her very well. I mean, who wouldn't? She was a goddess inside and out. She was what we call beauty with brains. Everything was settled. After she'd met my family, her family was living in Brazil, so it was tricky to meet them since we were both busy. She introduced me to them via Skype, and I saw that they were good people, a family of respect and values. I then understood where she got her qualities as a wife. Her mother was a very kind woman and she valued respect and genuine love. She reminded me of my own mother. I was glad I'd chosen a girl who came from a well. I didn't realize what I was letting myself in for. 9 months later, we decided to get married. We didn't want to make any drastic changes or attract too much attention. We decided to have a small intimate wedding ceremony with just our close friends and family. I didn't have many friends, so I invited a few of my colleagues. That was the day I got myself into a deceitful and unfaithful situation in my life. If only I'd known that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. 5 years later, my wife had started her own marketing agency. On the other hand, she got pregnant with our firstborn baby boy. We were so happy. We were really happy. I'd also become a political scientist, and things were great. After my son was born, Bianca was a lovely mother, but she got a lot of clients who wanted her agency to do the marketing, especially when there were big events. We had to hire a nanny to stay with our son because we would both get super busy, to the point that we would have to travel to other countries. I would be busy like that, too. Over the years, our son grew up, and by that time we had twins. The family kept on growing, getting stronger each day, and the money kept coming in. So, we decided to go to the Olympics in Tokyo. We also went on a family vacation. It was really great to spend time with my family, so we went to watch basketball games, and it was fantastic. I'm a big basketball fan, so I enjoyed every moment of it. We were lucky to have a political scientist with us because we got VIP seats, and my wife got to promote her agency, which really helped her business grow and take it to the next level. When the basketball game ended, there was this young Canadian basketball player who had skills and passion for days. You could tell he wasn't in it for the money. He was just enjoying it. He wasn't one of the best players, but he was the best, in my opinion. After the game, I went to say hi to the players and their coaches. It was great to chat with other people. We were busy shaking hands with the players when we reached this one athlete. My wife had gone ahead and shaken his hand, but what caught my attention was the way she was looking at the young man. They exchanged looks until I cleared my throat and greeted the young man, who was also busy ogling my wife. I didn't know if maybe I was reading too much into it, but the way they were looking at each other made me feel a bit uncomfortable and jealous. I love my wife so much that I didn't want any man looking at her like she was just some kind of meat on sale. I know my wife was and still is beautiful, so her beauty would somehow make me feel insecure. After we got back from Tokyo, things were different. Bianca would stare at her phone all day and not mind the children. We had a nanny, but every child needs their mother. There was this time where the nanny had gone home. I arrived at the house and there was so much smoke that I suffocated. When I got home, I went to check what was burning and found that Bianca had burned the dinner she was preparing. I asked why she wanted to burn the house down. She told me that she was busy and forgot to check the pots. Luckily, my children were also not home, as they were visiting my family. It was a relief. If my kids had been in the house while their mom was busy on her phone, they would have been in real trouble. I brought up the issue of her being an absent parent and how she was always glued to her phone. She got really angry and started shouting at me, saying that I wasn't the only one with a job and that she was busy. The kids had family, and I couldn't believe she was speaking like that. I wondered what had gone wrong with her. She had totally changed. My mind was telling me it was maybe work-related. She was always busy and traveling a lot meeting up with clients, so it was possible that it was really work-related. On a related note, my conscience kept saying something else. She had been okay all along, traveling and meeting up with clients, so what was up with the sudden change? Surely there was something going on with her behavior, which kept changing each time. Eventually, I decided to move our children to my family house, because of the tension that was going on in the house. As they say, children can easily feel the tension between parents. I could tell there was tension between my wife and I felt like I was catching things that were bothering her. I decided to move the kids to my family house so I could focus on the issue. A few months later, I tried talking to my wife about it and suggested we visit a couples counselor. She rejected my request and told me. She told me there was nothing wrong with her, which I knew was probably just her way of dismissing me. But I was worried about her because it was hanging on by a thread, and I was scared that once it loses its grip, it would fall and break. So, since she didn't want to meet me halfway and help me solve whatever problem we were facing, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew I had to. I needed to get to the bottom of everything, so I asked one of my good friends, who I'd met when I was still an assistant professor. He was also doing an internship in the IT and computer department. He was a computer geek, which is why I asked him to help me hack my wife's phone. I know it was a bit creepy, but I had no choice because I tried getting through to her. I tried getting through her phone and other gadgets, but they all had security codes, so it wasn't easy. My friend helped me find everything that was in Bianca's gadgets. What I found really shocked me. I thought I knew my wife, but it was clear that I didn't. I thought I had married well, but what she was doing was something I never thought she would do. I felt sick and couldn't. I was shocked to discover that my wife was flirting with a basketball player I had seen staring at her with bedroom eyes. It wasn't just flirting, she was also sharing nude pictures with him and engaging in sexual acts on camera. I was furious. I wanted to hurt her as much as possible, so I decided not to. I wanted to confront her about what I'd found out until I had all the information I needed about what she was doing. I was just disgusted because the athlete she was busy with was 10 years younger than her. Was that even legal? She was seducing and sharing her nudity with a child. I found that disgusting, and it still disgusts me. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked to discover that she was sleeping with a body seller. What she was doing was selling her body. What angered me even more was that she didn't even think of the consequences of what she was doing. Her marketing agency was doing well, and if those pictures and videos were to come out, her reputation and her business would be ruined. She didn't think of our family, the children, and everything else. I did some more digging with my friend's help. I found out that they'd spent some time together after the Olympic game we went to watch in Tokyo. I was left at the guest house in Shinjuku with the kids while she went to see the young athlete. I should have figured things out when we got back from Tokyo. She'd made some big changes. She was no longer. I found out that the young athlete was actually the richest and youngest basketball athlete in Canada. In my line of work, we call people who do what Bianca did with that young man as molesters because there was no way a grown woman would enjoy intimacy with a child. Not just any child, but one where you were older by 2 or 3 years. And it wasn't just a few years, but 10 full years. That was just a pure abomination. I was really disappointed in Bianca. I mean, why would she leave her warm and loving home and go outside her marriage to do such a disgusting act? I started to wonder if I was not a man enough or if she was not satisfied enough in our marriage. So she resorted to getting satisfaction outside our marriage with a young athlete. I started to doubt my man's capabilities and strengths because she really bruised my man ego. I felt like I was less of a man. There was no way I was going to just leave things as they were. I needed to teach them a lesson they would never forget. Even if they liked it, I was hungry for vengeance. My heart was shuddered and hurt. It wanted revenge. I couldn't allow them, well, more like I couldn't allow Bianca to toy with my heart like that and think she. I kept quiet for a few weeks, hoping she'd change her mind. I'd planted a bug on her phone so I could monitor where she was going. I got back home earlier that day and made dinner for my wife. I was trying to add some spark to our marriage. She came back late and made an excuse that she was busy at work. She said she was busy at work, but I'd seen her leave her office in the afternoon and go to a hotel nearby. I knew her meetings with clients didn't usually last more than 2 hours, but this one went on for 5 hours. Maybe she was in a very important meeting. I felt like a fool. Even a fool could. I wanted to see if he was being made a fool of. Bianca was making me do it, but fools also get tired of being fooled. When she came back, I asked to speak with her, but she dismissed me and told me that we would talk some other time. She said she was tired. I knew then that the young athlete had taken my wife and I had lost her to him. I decided to continue being the present parent in my children's lives. I was spending more time at my family house because I couldn't get my children back to the environment Bianca was creating. She was becoming a regular at that hotel, so I decided to just follow her and go to that hotel when I got there. I saw her coming from one of the hotel rooms with the young boy and they were laughing and acting all lovey. I was really worked up, so I went over to them. My wife gave me this evil look. She looked at me with so much hate in her eyes. The spark that was there when she would look at me was gone. She was a totally different person. I didn't even know how to describe her. She asked me what I was doing there. She said I was embarrassing her. I couldn't believe my ears. Who was the woman in front of me? She told me that I should go home and never bother looking for her. It was like she was one of my children. I knew then that I'd lost her. I'd lost my wife, but she wasn't going to leave me without a fight. A week later, I got a call from our family lawyer asking me to go to her office. When I got there, I was given an envelope with divorce papers that had been filed by my wife. This meant that she threw away 10 years of marriage for a young athlete she'd met a year ago. Sometimes life is fair to those who respect it. Imagine losing someone you've been married to for 10 years. The worst part is you don't lose them to someone at least their age, but they leave you for a child that is 10 years younger than you. Doesn't feel right. It makes you feel like you weren't enough. No wonder so many people turn to alcohol and drugs. Some even end up depressed or even committing suicide. It's because of all these challenges in marriage that some people say it's better to get married later in life. Some people say it's better to get married young so you have a lifetime to learn about your partner. Others say it's better to wait until you're older because you've had enough time to learn about the person you're committing to. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think marriage is an underrated scam where one party has to suffer in the hands of another. I don't see myself getting married again because I've learned the hard way that it's not worth it. The divorce papers I received didn't include anything I hadn't already considered. If I had signed them, she would have been entitled to 50% of everything I own. I couldn't let that happen, especially not after I had worked hard for everything I had. So I asked for an award in court to fight for my assets. I just couldn't let someone who went against her wedding vows walk out free with almost everything I owned. I was also going to get 50% of what she had owned, but what she made was way smaller than what I had. I then told myself that it wouldn't be a bad thing if I had taken everything she owned and maybe left her with at least 20% of what she owned. So I called her and found out that she had changed her number, which meant she really wanted nothing more to do with me. But I couldn't let her win, not with my. She also wanted to claim the children's inheritance, so she had to work for it. I called my friend again and asked him to find me Bianca's new number, which he did. Then I called her using a burner phone, hoping that she wouldn't recognize my voice. Luckily she didn't, meaning she had erased me from her mind. I have to admit that I was a little hurt by this, as I had assumed that she would recognize my voice having spent so long with me. However, she didn't, so I remembered that I had to stick to the plan. During the call I asked her to meet up with me at a nearby cafe, which she agreed to. I wondered who this person was who would just agree to meet up with someone without asking why. I also wondered who this person was. Maybe she thought it was her young athlete. That really shocked me. I was hurt, but I still cared. I mean, she's the mother of my children, and they still need her, so why would she sell herself short? Since then, I've vowed to myself that I'll never get into a relationship with a person without checking their background first, to avoid surprises like this. 2 days later, I met up with Bianca, which almost didn't end well because she was starting unnecessary drama and causing a scene, but I managed to calm her down. I mean, I was her husband, so I still knew how to press some buttons to make her stop being dramatic. Then, I told her that if she wanted me to sign the divorce papers and free her, she should give me 75%. She wanted me to take 75% of her company, and she would have the remaining 25%. She started swearing at me and telling me that I would get that 75% when she was 6 feet underground. I wanted to negotiate and do things calmly and in a civilized manner, but she chose to act like that. Then I showed her the pictures and videos of her and her young. I got some pretty incriminating evidence on my friend's phone. It showed my ex-partner and her baby boy. I told her that the evidence would not only destroy her but also her son. She started acting tough, saying that I had photoshopped everything. I told her that there was. We agreed to discuss everything in court during the divorce proceedings, but she needed to be prepared for what she might find there. I didn't want to lose the company, but I had to be firm with her and think of our children. I mean, who she was going. I gave her the money she was going to get on my 50% assets plus her money. I made things easier for everyone and saved her from the unknown. It was like I knew what was going to happen. You know, like I had predicted the future. The day of the divorce proceedings came. What surprised me was that she came accompanied by her boyfriend, who I didn't know about before. I thought the divorce proceedings only needed the married people and their representatives, but I decided to keep my peace and continued with the day. My legal representative then said that my wife was the one who was cheating. She'd been unfaithful during our marriage, so she didn't deserve anything that was mine. She started throwing tantrums that were unnecessary. I didn't understand why she was fighting for my assets while she had hers, plus a rich baby boyfriend who was an athlete, which should have been a cherry on top, but she wanted it. I was really disappointed in her. I had thought she was smart, but she was the dumbest person I had ever come across. A few weeks later, she had tried to damage my reputation on social media, but it backfired badly. I didn't even share the cremating pictures and videos. Her baby boyfriend did the work on my behalf. I was surprised because the boy was with Bianca at the court not so long ago. They were in love, or at least that's what people thought. They looked happy, so I don't know what would have made the boy release such disgusting. I asked my friend to look into what was really going on. It turned out that the young athlete had ended things with Bianca, and things weren't looking good for her. The young athlete had gone back to Canada, so Bianca was left with. I should mention that she had signed the 75% under our children's names, although she was unaware of this. She thought she had signed them to me. I felt bad about everything that was happening, but I had a feeling that karma would take its course. Karma was dealing with her in a very harsh way, to the point that Bianca went back to my family home and asked for forgiveness because my mother was very kind. She welcomed her, but her reputation was damaged, her business was gone, and only 25% was left. The other 75% was still safe, but it was no longer under her name. Bianca's life became a mess. Slowly she ended up in a deep depression and started taking drugs. My mother called me and told me to come home right away. She had explained everything to me and asked for my help with Bianca. I wasn't sure I wanted to help her, given that she had been throwing insults and tantrums at me for wanting. I was really happy that I'd fought so hard to keep my things. If I'd signed the divorce papers and agreed to give her 50% of everything I owned, she'd have lost it all to her Canadian young athlete. So I went home and saw the state it was in. Bianca was in a really bad way. I listened to my mother and got her help, not because I wanted to, but because she asked me to. My children couldn't keep seeing their mother in that state. My mother told me it had been 6 months since she'd moved to my family home. She didn't want to call and tell me that earlier because I was still upset, and she knew I wouldn't agree for her to take Bianca to our family home, which was true because, despite being my children's mother, I wanted nothing to do with her. I even hated her scent. My mother did the right thing by not telling me. I would have driven from Houston to Dallas to drag her out of my family home. She had really hurt me in the worst possible way when she was still drunk and swimming in love and head over heels for a young athlete just because he was rich or she wanted fame. The boy was already well known to me, so I decided to take Bianca to Texas rehab to get the help she needed. She had turned to drugs just because of a small athlete. She spent 9 months in rehab, and when she got out, she was back to being the Bianca I had fallen in love with. I was in love with her, but I was never going to get back together with her, even if she cried at a waterfall. I wasn't going to give in. I did it all for our children to have a chance with their mother. One day, she asked to speak to me. She told me everything that had happened and that the boy had started being abusive after he had. He scammed her off her company and dumped her. She started apologizing and told me that she was regretting everything she had ever done to our family. To be honest, I didn't care about her apologies. I just wanted her to be a mother to our children and cover the time she had lost. So I just told her. I told her that I had long forgiven her, but there was no way she and I were going to become a family again. The only thing that was connecting us was the kids. Other than that, we were in still or nothing to each other. I was just glad that she had gotten help and she was back to being a mother. Once I saw that she had fully recovered, I gave her a position as CEO at her marketing agency. I know, right? It was no longer hers, it now belongs to the children. So she was and still is an employee. That was the least I could do to help her. And I told her to find another place to live because I didn't want her to get too comfortable at my family home. So I agreed that she wasn't going to stay with the kids. She could visit them whenever she missed them, as long as everything was settled. I was happy with my life. I moved on from the past and focused on the present and the future. Did I handle everything well and do well by helping Bianca, given what she had done to me and our family? Or should I have let her suffer like how she was after the young athlete had dumped her? Do you think she is still going to go back to being the Bianca she was when she was still dating the young man? Please advise.